What? Oh, this is. Alrighty. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Happy Monday. I am back. So I'm Carol Williams with Williams Immigration. We are an immigration law firm headquartered in sunny South Florida, and we work with families and businesses that are needing to navigate their way through our U.S. immigration system. So for my businesses, those are business owners, in-house counsel, the entrepreneurs themselves that are needing visas and or green cards through their business. And we also work with U.S. citizens that are sponsoring their family members. So usually it's going to be a spouse, a fiance, a dependent child, or a parent who is in need of a green card. And also we help people get their U.S. citizenship. So I like to come on live in the evenings. I also go live Monday mornings. I don't know if y'all know this, but I go live Monday mornings. That conversation is generally employment-based immigration updates. But in the evening, it's usually more my family-based folks. So I want to give you some updates, and actually let me pull up my updates, and then I will answer some questions for you if you have any. So updates. There's a new proposed rule. It's not finalized yet. It is proposed, and it's really going to impact, I think, the people that are going to not particularly like this rule are going to be U.S. citizens and current green card holders. So if you, according to this new rule, it's really all about the biometrics. If you are getting more, the U.S. government wants more information on people that are associated with the application. So meaning the sponsors, the U.S. citizens, the current green card holders who are sponsoring their family members. So they have a proposed rule out that would allow them to capture biometric data from the sponsors, the U.S. citizen family members, the lawful permanent resident family members, and minors, which right now the U.S. Immigration Service, when you are filing an application, does not collect any in-person physical biometric data. So this would mean having U.S. citizens and current green card holders who are sponsors attend biometric appointments and give photo, fingerprint, sometimes DNA, sometimes facial and iris scans. So if you have some thoughts on that, either way, the U.S. government is accepting comments on that until January 2nd of 2026. And then for folks that are interested and concerned about the public charge rule, the public charge rule essentially is the U.S. government's attempt at determining whether or not someone that receives a green card will be able to financially support themselves. Like that's really kind of the very basic explanation of this. And as a result of that rule, you have to show that you or a co-sponsor meet the minimum financial regulations. There's a chart tells us how much money needs to be flowing into the household based upon the number of people that live in the house. And so that number is basically designed to determine whether or not the future green card holder will have a financial need to apply for and receive government benefits. That's kind of the long and short of it. So now we are looking at a new policy whereby individuals that have certain health challenges, there would be extra scrutiny on them, and the consular officers would be able to deny their application based on these health challenges being diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular issues, so heart issues, and or psychiatric or mental health issues. The reason behind this, we are being told, is because individuals with those particular health challenges will need more medical care, and can they afford that medical care? So some folks are not okay with this. So we'll see if this continues, if this new sort of policy continues. And sort of the last update I have for you is, and it's kind of new, but not really, just sort of an update. TPS designation, temporary protected status for South Sudan, expired November 3rd, 2025. And so they are issuing a 60-day transition period. So during that transition period, you can still work as long as you have an employment authorization document. It'll auto extend until January 5th, and you can remain in the US until January 5th. So the EADs will no longer be valid as of January 6th, 2026. So next year, 60 days. So I wanted to bring those updates to you all. Those are kind of my Monday evening updates for you. And now to the fun part. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take a stab at answering them for you. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I will do my best. But y'all know me, if you've been following me for any length of time, if I don't know the answer or if I'm not best suited to give you an answer, I have no problems letting you know that. While I am an immigration attorney, I'm not your immigration attorney, so our conversation here this evening is not protected by attorney-client privilege because you are not my clients, and I would never give you legal advice for your specific case online. That kind of destroys confidentiality. So with that said, I am happy to have a conversation, try to give you guys a little bit of education, and see what's going on, see what kind of questions you have. I already know there's going to be tons of questions about different cases and processing times. So I'm going to start with sort of a general reminder to folks, folks that may not be following me. I have a ton of stuff on my desk, guys. I gotta fix that tonight. So for processing times in general, if you go to the USCIS website, you can pull down the processing times. So that is sort of my general caveat on processing times. I do not keep processing times in my head. Anytime somebody asks me a processing time, if they're my clients, we look them up. We look them up right then and there so that they're getting the most current info. So with that said, let's see what we have by way of questions. What we have here. How long is it? I knew it was going to be processing. How long is it going to take to get me traveling documents? My VAWA is filed 12 months ago. I don't know. Processing times will depend on the case, the type of application that you filed, and what office is currently processing it. Truly the best place to go for your processing times is USCIS.gov. They have the most recent processing times for all cases. So I actually don't know how long it's going to take you to get that. Your advanced poll. Hill King 22, good evening. How are you? Ms. Litt, how long did it take for an expedite answer if they told you 10 days? If they're telling you 10 days, then I would give them at least 10 days, although I'm going to guess the reason you're asking is because it's been more than 10 days. I would say 10 business days, not 10 calendar days, number one. If it's taken more than that, then I would reach back out to them. They're taking, Hill King 22 is saying they're taking a long time for naturalization. Is that normal? So long time is relative. What I may consider super fast in the immigration world, you may consider that to be a super long time. So I don't know how long I don't know like how long your actual case has been pending. So the processing times are what the processing times are, right? So unless your case has been pending for several years and it shouldn't be pending for several years, or if it's so long, if your case is a long time past the processing times which are listed on the website, then then we've got potentially some issues. But the processing times on the US government website are representative of 80% of the same case type that the government is currently processing out of that specific office. So is something taking a long time? I don't know. Like, I don't know because I don't know where your case is currently filed. How long are 601As taking to get approved? Honestly, I don't know off the top of my head. Some colleagues and I were chatting recently, maybe a couple months ago, and they're not fast. 601As are not fast. I think people were saying like over a year, like, so they're not fast. 601As are just, they're definitely not fast. Tristan's asking, hey Tristan, any chance of emergency relief visas for Jamaican nationals who have U.S. sponsorship available? There are humanitarian applications that can always be filed. So those can certainly be filed. The circumstances can certainly be explained in the application. So I would say yes, there is a mechanism for those types of applications. Whether or not they get approved, I don't know. I'm not sure that I see the current USCIS administration approving a ton of those. But again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if maybe they are thinking about TPS for folks. I do not know. But short answer is, can individuals from Jamaica who have been impacted by Hurricane Melissa and have a sponsor in the States apply for humanitarian entry? Absolutely. Will it get approved? That I don't know. I can see that going kind of both ways. The way that the immigration office kind of thinks. Let's see what else we have. What? I should look too far. Let's see here. Naturalization, 12 months and still waiting. Depending on the office, that may be completely normal. Can I start my adjustment of status application while my J1 waiver is processing? I wouldn't. I wouldn't file that so the J1 waiver must be in place before you are allowed to change your status or adjust your status. So if the officer is doing things correctly, and an adjustment is filed and they realize that there is no J1 waiver in place, meaning approved, as of the time the adjustment has been filed, that adjustment will be denied. It should be denied if that happens. So that is not something that I would do. What do I think of pending asylum? Is it safe? Is it safe from what? Is it safe from being picked up by ICE? No, not at all. Let's see here. Do you think I should get an added stamp? Got approved on the 1st, but unsure how long I should wait. You got approved for what? You got approved for your green card? On the 1st of what? On the 1st of November? I would need way more details, but I'm gonna make some assumptions here. So an added stamp, for folks that don't know, an ADIT, Adam David Indigo Tango stamp, is evidence that USCIS can put in your passport to show that you have lawful permanent resident status, or that you are a green card holder. Those stamps allow you, when they're in your passport, to travel, and they're evidence to show that you're a green card holder. So if you are telling me that you got your green card status, you got your lawful permanent status approved on November 1st, and you want to get an added stamp, unless you are trying to travel like immediately, I would say wait. I would just say wait. Like, it's not, it, assuming it's November 1st, like, we are 10 days away from that, right? So I get that people are impatient. I get that you've waited a very long time, most likely to get that approval, but your card should be coming in the mail. If you were my client, I would tell you to wait unless you needed to travel immediately. I understand that we want what we want, and I understand that we want it super fast. But the Immigration Service is run and operated and is worked. All of our cases are worked by human beings. Human beings that, like, there's always a process behind the scenes that they're not going to tell us what it is, right? There is a process behind the scenes. So just because something's approved doesn't mean that your card, your physical card, is then sent to you the next day. That's not what happens. The approval goes to somebody else. That somebody else then has to, send out the mail. Then that approval notice, that notice of approval then goes to the company that actually prints the cards. And then you sit in line and wait for your card to get printed. So that process generally takes a couple of weeks for the card to reach you in the mail, because you also have to deal with the U.S. postal system. So there's always something that has to happen in the background. So just because you have an approval notice doesn't mean that your card, whether it's an employment authorization document, whether it's advanced parole, whether it's a green card, it doesn't mean that card is going to come like in 10 days. Now, this all assumes that you are approved November 1st, right? But we have to give the Immigration Service time to do their job. Did I ever work at the U.S. Embassy in other countries? No, I did not. After the receipt notice, how long for biometrics? Completely depends. Depends on the case type. Sometimes they're not going to ask for your biometrics until they're much closer to actually adjudicating the case. So for some case types, it may only be like a couple of weeks, a couple of months. For some, it may be much further out. It really kind of depends on the case. If I sent in an RFE, how long from that does it take? I sent it in April of 2024. I'm going to go on a limb and say you probably should have heard something from them by now. But I don't know what was in the RFE. I don't know if you are in administrative processing. So I would, you can always reach out to them and ask them like what's happening, or you can bring everything that you have filed, copies, to an attorney and have them look at it. Like my office does that. So it really just depends on how you want to go. But I mean, I can make an assumption that maybe you should have heard, but maybe that assumption is destroyed once I see what was filed and then what was asked for and then the response. So I don't know. But yeah, it's, I would say off the cuff, 2024 seems like you should have heard from them by now. Kirk Gregory, my office generally does not do TU and VAWA. There are incredibly good immigration attorneys out there that handle those types of cases. My office just typically doesn't handle those. Someone over on YouTube is asking if I have a pending I-45, which is an adjustment of status, which is a green card application, and I have TPS. Any problem about that? I mean, it is what it is at this point. No, I don't see any problems off the top of my head, but I would need to see all the paperwork. I would need to see everything before I can say whether or not I think that is a problem. Let's see here. Yeah, confirming that you got your approval on the 1st of November, you need to be patient. Sadly, none of my clients like to hear that though. But yeah, you just need to be patient. 10 days is not at all unrealistic that you don't have your green card yet, your physical green card in your possession yet. Right, some of these questions I don't understand. USPS, United States Postal Service, said my card was delivered, but I never got it. How do I apply for a replacement? I, first of all, would have a slightly deeper conversation with the U.S. Postal Service. That would be number one. I guess actually number one is incredibly frustrating. When you're supposed to have something, the online system says it's been delivered and you don't have it, and the U.S. Postal System is like, I don't know what happened. So one, that is incredibly irritating. So I do understand that. Two, I would go back out to the U.S. Postal Service and say, hand me something in writing, please and thank you, that you delivered this and where and all of the details. Then I would go to USCIS and be like, hey, I need a new, it was never delivered. Are you sure it was sent out? It's a whole dealing with the interplay between USCIS and U.S. Postal Service and a lost piece of paper or a card is probably one of the more maddening things that we do that shouldn't be that complicated, but it is. Let's see here. Is a year to decide after the 45 interview common? Generally not. Will uploading unsolicited evidence nudge a decision? Probably not. Here's one of the things I love about immigration, truly, is that there's more than one way to get to the end result. So you can talk to 18 different immigration attorneys and you can get 16 different strategies, all are sound, and they should get you to your end result, whether that be, a non-immigrant work authorized visa, whether that be, an employment-based green card, citizenship, family-based green card, waiver. Like, there's more than one way to get. There's more than one strategy that can be employed, right? I have colleagues that are a fan of uploading unsolicited documents. I am not in that camp, right? And I think I'm not a fan of giving them unsolicited documents. I think it is certainly easier to give them unsolicited documents if and only if you have a My USCIS account, because then you're guaranteed that it goes into your specific file. But I have colleagues that we completely disagree with one another on this, right? And they're good colleagues, they're great attorneys, like we're good friends, all the things. So I'm not a fan of just giving them documents when they haven't asked for them, especially if they're beyond processing times. I want to know if they want something specific. Like, if you want something specific, let me know. I'm more than happy to work with my client and get it to you, but I want to know if they want something specific. Because if you start uploading, my philosophy is, if you start uploading unsolicited documents, now you're forcing them to look at those unsolicited documents. And if those unsolicited documents bring forth questions that they actually didn't have before, now you could be staring down an RFE when an officer potentially may have just approved you. So no, I am not a fan of giving the government unsolicited documents. And again, you talk to 16 different immigration lawyers, you probably got 14 different views on this, different ways to slice this. That's my view. Not necessarily shared by all, not necessarily shared by some of my friends. Again, so that is something, I would not, when my clients and I have this issue, we look very closely at what documents the government already has. And generally, I come down on that side of, I'm not a fan of just giving them more documents. But I have very good friends and colleagues who, I think do it carefully, do it with care. They're not just advising their clients to just go upload stuff, right? But I'm generally not a fan of that. I don't think it may nudge them to move. They may not move in a manner that you like, I guess, is something that you should consider. So for folks that are online right now and you are worried about, mail being lost, that sort of thing, that is the reality, right? The U.S. Immigration Service uses the U.S. Postal System. They're not going to use they sort of shut us down. We used to send in FedEx envelopes for us to get copies of like decisions and stuff back, and they completely shut us down. That was only going to work for so long, but we rode that wave until we could. But that is honestly one of the benefits of having an attorney, right? Like, my clients mail, like, those cards, they come to me. And so, my address is stable. Not to say that the Postal Service can't lose stuff that's coming to my address as well, but when clients typically tend to move around a little bit more, it gets a little dicey, whereas our business addresses tend to be more stable. And we get to know our postal folks, which is always a plus, because most people aren't, talking to their postal folks all the time. Coach 704 is asking, how can we ask a question without everyone seeing? That is you going into the bio and scheduling a consult. And then we can have a private one-on-one conversation about whatever your immigration issue happens to be. Is waiting for visa availability for like 2 years normal? Absolutely. Absolutely. It depends on the type of case that you have, but the visa bulletin is, like, most people don't like it. You're absolutely going to wait for visa availability. And so it depends on which category you're in. It depends on which preference category you're in. Some of the employment-based categories, if you're somebody from India, are taking far longer than 2 years. So it really just depends on what your visa category is. But yeah, for some folks that's completely normal. Now for other folks, depending on where, what their visa category is and where they're from in the world, 2 years might not be so normal. But yeah, there are some folks that are definitely waiting more than 2 years because of the visa bulletin. It's been 4 months since I did my marriage-based interview with no update. What can I do? You can certainly ping USCIS. You can certainly ping USCIS and ask them, hey, remember me? What's going on? What proof should I show if I have an age gap marriage? This is a really good question. I'm going to go on a limb and say you're probably not going to like my answer, but it's a very good question. So there is no unicorn list of documents for a marriage-based case, whether you have an age gap in the marriage, whether you have two folks that are married that are from different religions, whether you have two folks that are married that aren't living together, whether you have two folks that are married that don't have a shared bank account. Those are sort of the general biggie type questions that I get, right, on those issues. What the officer needs to see is that you have a real relationship and it's not a sham. The officer needs to see that you, when you got married, that you intended to stay married, that you intended to build a life together. Building a life together, for me, may look very different than it does for you. And it may, again, look very different than it does for one of my friends, right? But there's no unicorn list, right? So you have an age gap in your marriage. My response to that is, so what? Do you love one another? Like, do you want to be married? Did you intend to get married? Like, are you creating a life together? Show the officer those things. I can think of actually one of my more favorite clients. They had a significant age gap and didn't impact their application at all, right? Because they were living authentically who they were as a couple. And so, when I gave them my laundry list of documents that I love to see, on like what I consider to be like the perfect case, has all these documents, right? And I tell people, no one's ever given me all these documents. I don't expect for anyone to ever give me all those documents, right? But there is no like unicorn list of documents where if the immigration officer sees these documents, you're automatically approved, or the immigration officer loves this particular set of documents. Like, it just doesn't really exist, right? Because everybody's marriage, everybody's relationship is different. One couple may love to take photos and there's an age gap. Another couple may not love to take photos and there's no age gap. Some folks like to hang out and go to restaurants and go to movies and go to museums. Other couples can't stand that stuff, right? So it is about being authentically who you are as a couple and providing them documentation that shows that. And that really, honestly, looks different for each of my clients. And I know that's probably not the answer that you wanted. But I wouldn't be so hung up on the age gap. Like if within the four walls of your house, y'all are not concerned about the age gap, then don't be concerned about it just because one of you is not a U.S. citizen and the other one is sponsoring. Like, if your relationship is real, y'all will be fine, right? Like in my, my couples that have, have had age gaps, or, sort of these significant age gaps, or whatever. And by the way, significant is completely objective, right? Or subjective, rather. The age gaps fall away when you start talking to them. Like, they just do. Like, they just don't matter, because they are being authentically who they are as individuals and as a couple. So I am not really ever so concerned when someone calls me or emails me or whatever, and they say, oh, we've got this age gap. Okay. Generally, I'm like, all right, tell me what it is. And then I say, so what? Like, that age gap didn't stop y'all from getting together. It shouldn't stop you from moving forward, I guess is how I look at it. Currently waiting for an interview date in Juarez. Well, good luck with your interview date once you get that. Corey, I hope my response was helpful, so thank you for that. Let us know how it goes. I don't have anyone to help me with joint sponsor. What should I do? You're going to have to find a joint sponsor, or you're going to have to look at your assets. If your income is not enough, you can either add in assets to get to that income level, or you can get a joint sponsor, or if the person that you are sponsoring is in the US and they have work authorization, their income can be included in some circumstances. Let's see here. My husband and I have our interview on Wednesday. What can we expect? You can expect the officer to ask you questions about your relationship. How'd you meet? What do you like to do? That sort of thing. Here's what I tell all of my clients about a marriage-based interview. There shouldn't be a single question that an officer can ask you that you can't answer. There shouldn't be a single question that an officer can ask you about your relationship that you two can't answer. Now, I will say this. I generally find, and this is a big old generality, but it sort of holds true. If we are talking about an opposite sex couple, I generally find that men just don't know the dates. They just don't know the dates. Like, they will fumble, and these have been my clients, and we've had some very honest discussions about this. They will fumble, like, maybe the date of the proposal. They may fumble, like, the birthday of their spouse by, like, a day or two. No, this is not the time to be like, oh, hey, I'm just not good with dates. No, not the time. This is what I tell my clients all the time. Not the time to start talking up there, talking about I'm not good with dates, right? So if you are that person, because I am that person, I am not good with dates. I'm gonna need you to know some dates when you go up in that interview, right? Like, simple dates, like your spouse's birthday, what day you proposed, or what day you were proposed to. Significant dates in your lives, know them. The interview is not the time to be like, oh, I'm not real good with dates, right? Now, if you get the date wrong, right, by a day or so, excuse me, the wedding date should never be wrong. I'm just gonna put that out there. The wedding date should never be wrong. Like, come on, y'all. But again, I'm really bad about dates. But there's nothing that officer should be able to ask you about your relationship that the two of you don't know. Like absolutely nothing. Like, you two are the best sorts of information about your relationship, whether that is what is your spouse's favorite type of food, what did you have for breakfast this morning, where do y'all live, describe your home, all of these questions the answers to if you are in a real relationship that is not sham, that is not for the sole purpose of getting a green card. So I always tell my clients, take a deep breath and just answer the question. Like, your relationship better than anybody on the planet. Of the people that will be in your interview room, you do know your relationship the best, right? But you can absolutely expect an officer to ask you questions about your relationship. You can expect the officer to ask you questions about your last entry. You can expect the officer to ask about your employment, overseas travel, criminal history. You can expect that officer to ask anything that was filed with that application. So all the questions in the application, you should read every single last one of them over again and make sure that you still agree with the answers. Right? And if you don't, then you can amend the application there. You can be like, you know what? Sorry, I actually lived there from 2022 to 2024, and I accidentally put 2026, that kind of thing. Like, you can absolutely amend your application. Most officers will ask you if there are things that you need to amend. Like, most of them are thinking, like transpose numbers, that sort of thing, or addresses, like if you've moved since the application was filed, that sort of thing. But there really shouldn't be anything that officer can ask you that y'all don't know about one another. So I always tell my clients, just take a deep breath, go in there, and you're just having a conversation, an important conversation, but it is a conversation. You're not in some sort of class. You're not in some sort of courtroom setting. You're in a standard regular plain Jane office. Listen. If you were telling me, see, I knew it. I'm scrolling down now. You're saying your husband's bad with the dates, and I didn't. Don't accuse me of being sexist. I'm just saying, with all my clients over the years, it is usually the men who are awful with dates. Although I am the exception on that because I totally am bad with dates. That is not the time to be hoo hee hee. I don't know. It's not a big deal. Yes, it is a big deal. Dates are a big deal. So you tell him I said dates are a big deal. Um, any luck with filing for siblings? You can certainly file I-130s for siblings of U.S. citizens. Those wait times are in double-digit years. They're in double-digit years. When folks come to talk to me about filing for their sibling, I always screen them to see if there is something else that they might qualify for that will get them here quicker. Sibling of a U.S. citizen is the very last category in the preference category for families. So I always look to see if there's something else that we can do for that person. But if there isn't, and people understand that it's a very long wait, then I would say go forth and file. Can an officer ask you when you were last intimate? Can they? Yes. Do they? I have never had that question asked. I've never had that question asked, and I don't know that I would allow my clients to answer that. I think there are 1,012 other questions that can be asked to find out if a relationship is real or not. And questions about intimacy well, first of all, I just think the questions are rude, number one. But number two, regardless of whether or not I think it's rude, there are cultures where people do absolutely do not talk about intimacy with someone other than their spouse. And so that is considered so incredibly disrespectful in those cultures. And so I'm not really sure I would allow my client to answer that question. But again, I have never had that question asked of any of my clients. Um, so, does the USCIS use a Socratic method? Not that I have found. It is a conversation. Are they going to ask you questions? Absolutely, but it's a conversation. You can go online and check the status of your case. You can go at uscis.gov and check the status of your case. And been up so long. Hold on. My green card expired after I put my citizenship application. I have my interview date. Would I get DE? I'm assuming DE. Oh, would I get denied? No, they're not going to deny if your green card expires while your citizenship application is pending. That is not a reason for them to deny it. Someone said tattooed dates on your arm. That is like the best thing I have seen. I would not do that. I would not advise that. But that is hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. That's fabulous. I am married and I'm applying for my citizenship. Am I going to get asked information about my husband? Probably just confirming your marriage dates, but I've not seen officers really focus on. So I haven't seen officers during citizenship interviews focus on the U.S. citizen spouses. Current administration is absolutely looking for people who have committed fraud anywhere throughout their immigration history. So, you know, can they ask you questions about your marriage? I mean, they can. I don't know that I see that happening a whole lot right now, but I mean, can they? Yes. I don't know that I think it's going to be like a ton of questions about your spouse. And y'all also, you have to remember, officers don't have the luxury of, spending like 2 hours with you. Like they don't have that luxury. Like they have a lot of cases on their desk. They have a lot of cases that they need to process and get through. So asking about your spouse during your citizenship interview, that officer is honestly should assume that any issues or questions about your spouse, assuming that you got your green card through your spouse, should have been asked at the green card stage. So I don't know that I particularly be so concerned about that. I've been with my partner for over 8 years. I recently got married. Can my son still file for me being 21? If your son is so spouse, spouses can file green cards for spouses. Spouses can sponsor, say that again. Spouses can sponsor their spouses for green cards. U.S. citizen children over 21 can sponsor their parents for green cards. So if you fit under both of those categories, then it's really up to you and your family who sponsors you. In my interview, my adjustment of status interview, married with the U.S. I'm assuming that's U.S. citizen. Can I get detained for overstaying my visa? Here's the deal. Here's what I tell everybody. If you are in the, and this is not new. Well, let me be very clear. What I'm about to say is not new. If you are in the U.S. and you are out of status, you can always be picked up and put into deportation proceedings. That is not new. That has been the case ever since I've been practicing, almost 30 years now. It seems like a very long time when I say that. That has always been the case. While that has always been the rule, each White House administration generally comes in and says, okay, here's the rule. And then they look at the rule and they look at their resources, meaning how many ICE officers do they have? Where do they want to get the biggest bang for their buck based on their own beliefs about immigration and what have you, and their own policies. Prior administrations have had a sort of like a priority list, right? So people committing murders at the top of that list. If you are here undocumented, you're committing murders, you're committing all the crimes. The past presidents I can really think of have said you're kind of at the top of our priority list, right? Like you are not someone that we want in the country, right? If you're here and you're committing all these atrocious acts, right? And it gets, and as you go down that priority list, oftentimes the folks that were here who have entered lawfully, overstayed, but are now married to a U.S. citizen, but are still undocumented, are still out of status. They're like, we're just not really gonna, like, we're just not gonna worry about this, folks. Can they? Absolutely, they could have. Did they? Oftentimes, no, right? So our current administration, there doesn't really seem to be a priority list. It seems to be sort of everybody that is undocumented can, like, it just seems like everybody that's undocumented is like high priority, right? So can you be in the wrong place, wrong time, get picked up by ICE, come in contact with law enforcement, get arrested, have an ICE hold put on you? Can they, for some reason, come to your employer not knowing that you're there and pick you up? All of these things can happen. All of these things can happen. Can they arrest you at your interview? Yes. This is not the first administration to do that. So for my clients, I have very real, very tough, very emotional conversations with them about that from the very beginning of their case, so that they have time to kind of wrap their head around it in a real way, make some family decisions if there are children involved. But the short answer is yes. They can absolutely come and detain you if you are undocumented. The longer answer is, or really it's a longer answer, but it's a short answer, right? Like, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know. ICE doesn't tell us, hey, we're going to be at, XYZ local office, today. Like, they don't tell us that, right? So can they? Absolutely. Will they? I have no idea. Are applications getting approved with people that entered lawfully, overstayed, and are married to U.S. citizens and are currently undocumented? Absolutely, those cases are getting approved. Absolutely, those cases are getting approved. Other cases are getting approved, right? So I want people to understand that cases are getting approved. The media is never going to focus on the fact that cases are getting approved. They're never going to focus on that fact. But cases are getting approved. I have more cases being approved than I have cases with RFEs or denials. Cases are getting approved. So, you just, this is why I think it's super important at the beginning of, my engagements with people that we have these very difficult and emotional conversations. I don't think I would be doing my job well. I don't think I would be working and helping them if I waited until the very end to have that conversation. I feel like that's not fair. So short answer, absolutely. Absolutely. Will it happen? Will it happen to you specifically? I have no idea. I have no idea. So let's see here. So the biometrics appointment, what to expect at the fingerprint appointment, the biometrics appointment is actually really, I don't know, for some things it's really kind of anticlimactic, right? You go in, you check in, they take photograph, fingerprints, you leave. It's usually fairly quick. And then after that, you wait. So every time something happens in immigration, whether it be you get your receipt notice, you get your biometric notice, you get your interview notice, you get your RFE, you respond to your RFE, like every time something happens, after that you wait. Which for someone like me who's not very patient, it can be a really frustrating process. I'm just so used to the waiting now. But you wait. So after you get your fingerprint appointment, after you do your biometrics, then there's usually, depending on the type of case, there's usually quite a long wait, right? Because the next thing you should be getting is, in a family-based case, not a green card case, is all things ideal, an interview notice. So that, that might take several months. That may take a year, depending on the case type, right? So once you get your biometrics, you wait. Hold on. I'm gonna try to move the puzzle piece. It doesn't like me for some reason. There we go. Okay. I lost my green card in the street. How long to wait to recover it? First of all, if you lost it, did you lose it or was it stolen? If you think it was stolen, I would file a police report. And then you can file for a new green card, a new physical card with USCIS. This is a question I answer often. I have a temporary 5551, which is a temporary, it's evidence that you're a green card holder. Usually they put a stamp on your passport. It's also called an addict stamp. And you've got a pending 751, which is a removal of conditions. Can I travel with the temporary 5551 stamp on your passport and your extension letter for 48 months of your card? Excuse me. The short answer is yes. Right? The short answer is sure. These are why these documents were designed, right? The I-551 stamp was designed to show that you're a green card holder. The extension of 48 months was designed to give, again, evidence that you still have your green card, just because USCIS is taking so long with those applications. So can you travel? Can you buy a flight? Can you book a flight? Can you pay for it? Can you hop on a plane? Absolutely. Better question is, should you travel? And that I do not know. Should you travel looks at that question of should you travel looks at your individual circumstances. Do you have a criminal history anywhere in the world at any time in your life, even if the judge told you that you don't have to talk about it, even if the judge told you it was completely expunged from your record, even if the judge told you it was sealed? Do you have a deportation order? Those are two of the big things that I talk to my clients about when they're asking me whether or not they should travel. So can you, with those documents, travel? Yes. Should you specifically travel? I have no idea. That is an analysis I do with every single one of my clients when they are, in this current immigration environment, when they are looking to travel. Is it good to get scheduled for a second interview for your 485? It happens. It certainly happens. Cases certainly get approved after a second interview. A second interview generally gives me pause. It's frankly, it's a red flag. I'm not gonna lie. Like if I get a second interview for 45 and I'm not expecting one, or I'm not hoping for one, because there are some cases, frankly, where I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping for a second interview where I get like another shot at the apple to have a conversation with an officer. So there are some cases where I'm hoping for a second interview. In those cases, I'm like, woohoo. But on cases where I'm not expecting a second interview and I don't particularly want a second interview and all I want is an approval, yes, that is a bit of a red flag. But it could be one question. It could honestly be like one question that they maybe forgot to ask you. It doesn't have to be sort of this sense of doom and gloom. Cases absolutely get approved after a second interview. Once I get over my irritation at having a second interview when I did not expect one, I go back into gratitude mode. I am happy for the second interview because that means the agency is still speaking to me about this case. Because if they wanted, they could simply issue a denial notice. They could simply issue a notice of intent to deny. But a second interview means they're still willing to talk to me. They're still willing to talk to my client. So they're not ready to deny it just quite yet. I still have an opportunity to either give them more evidence, talk to them, explain something. So all is not lost. So I very quickly try to get over my irritation at the second interview notice and go right back into positive gratitude. They are still talking to us. So that is how I look at second interviews. Are they a bit of a red flag when I'm not expecting one? Absolutely. But silver lining is they're still talking. Is the wait shorter for citizenship applications? Honestly, I haven't really looked at the processing times recently. I can't. I think the last few I did were less than a year, which I think is good. I honestly think anything less than a year is good. On the family side. On the business side, less than a year kind of needs to happen so that folks can plan their workload and their businesses. What else? Would taking classes at a college help a green card case? Oh, that's like such a broad question. It really depends on what kind of green card case you would be eligible for as to whether or not taking classes would have any sort of impact on it. Generally, I'm generally only talking to folks about college courses, university courses, getting university degrees if they have an employer who is sponsoring them, and we're looking at strategy. But usually those folks are typically already enrolled in a U.S. institution, and maybe we're looking at a second degree, or even sometimes a third degree. In terms of if we're talking sort of, if we're talking on a family-based side, it really depends on why you are looking to attend, and take college, and take college courses. So it very much depends. And I know folks hate when lawyers say that, but it really does. A lot of what we do is strategy, and so that is why we say it depends when we get sort of very, very broad questions. with my spouse for 2 years. My only concern is she's on Medicaid. Is that a red flag? It could be. The government is going to want to see that, and it's not necessarily that your spouse is on Medicaid. It is the government wants to see that your spouse has enough income to ensure that you will not apply for and receive public benefits. So it might be advisable, depending on whether or not depending on whether or not your spouse meets the income rules, the income levels, it might be advisable to look for a co-sponsor, a joint sponsor. So I think that is going to be the last question that I answer. I have a list. I have 4 more things that I need to do tonight, and I'm fairly certain all 4 are not going to get done because it is a little bit late my time. But I should be back. I think I will be back tomorrow, answering more questions, giving you guys an update on anything that happens between today and tomorrow, and things that may have happened in the past week or so. So this is always fun to chat with you guys. I am Carol Williams with Williams Immigration. I work with families. I work with employers, employees who are trying to just navigate this very crazy topsy-turvy U.S. immigration system. If you want to work with us, feel free to click the link in the bio. Schedule a consult. I can tell you right now, we like to laugh, and I'm kind of sarcastic. So if those are things that you don't like, I may not be the best person to work with. But if you like someone that is a little sarcastic and loves to laugh, even when it seems like it's not a laughing matter, we are gonna find that silver lining, even though it may not seem so silver at the time, because we work in a sense of gratitude over here. So, but if you want to, have a consult with us, talk about a specific situation, you're welcome to do so. Just click the link in the bio and follow the instructions, and I will chat with you guys tomorrow. Have a great night. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit. I appreciate it. Bye, guys.